Hello everyone, welcome to this session. It was in the late 1980s that the representatives of authorities and pharmaceutical companies from Europe, Japan, and the United States, along with observers from WHO, European Free Trade Association, and Nordic countries, came together to formulate a single guideline for the whole world. Yes, we are going to talk about good clinical practice, and I'm Dr. Tanya. So at the end of the session, you'll be able to list the principles of GCP. What is good clinical practice? It is an international, ethical, and scientific quality standard for designing, conducting, recording, and reporting trials that involve the participation of human subjects. It was formulated first by the Indian International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use. ICH consists of 4 chapters: quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. And the GCP comes under the efficacy guidelines, the E6 guideline. So it was first formulated in 1996, that is the E6R1, and the first revision came after a 20-year challenge in 2016. Now we are expecting another revision in the fall of 2021. GCP says that the rights, well-being, and safety of the trial subjects and the data credibility has to be taken care of. The subject protection is much higher than the data integrity. Everything is important, but the rights, well-being, and safety of the participant comes above everything. So there are several chapters in ICH GCP, and in this session we'll be seeing the glossary as well as the principles of GCP. There are 65 terms in the ICH GCP, and it is somewhat different from the Indian GCP. Some terms are missing in the ICH GCP and some are added in the Indian GCP. For example, escape treatment is present in the Indian GCP. Similarly, the phases of trial are present in the Indian GCP. The recent addition are certified copy, monitoring plan, etc. So let us go into the principles of ICGCP. There are 13 principles of ICGCP. I'll be discussing ICGCP alongside Indian GCP guidelines. Okay, so the first principle states that a clinical trial or any research has to be conducted in concordance with the ethical principles which originated in the Declaration of Helsinki, and it is consistent with GCP and applicable regulatory requirements. So if you remember, the Declaration of Helsinki was formulated after the thalidomide tragedy in 1964, and since then it has undergone several revisions. Now, who is our regulatory authority? The Central Drug Standard Control Organization is the central licensing agency in India, and the Drug Controller General of India is at the top of the CDSCO. Dr. V.G. Samani is our current Drug Controller General of India. The second principle states that we should always weigh the benefit and risk. Is the benefit really worth the risk? Now, currently, we are having the COVID-19 vaccine trials, and the probability of having a world free of corona, that is outweighing the risk of the adverse events reported with the COVID-19 vaccine. This is in concordance with the principle of precaution and risk minimization in the Indian GCP guidelines. So, always the science clamors for advancement, and the ethics says that we should be cautious. So, the third principle says that the rights, well-being, and safety of the participant is high above the science and the society. This is in concordance with the principle of non-exploitation, especially in the vulnerable group, children. We should not give any misinformation, and in certain communities or in certain countries, people are prone for exploitation. We should not do that. We should properly remunerate the participant and always minimize the risk. Fourth principle of ICGCP states that there should be adequate data, preclinical data before phase 1 study. If it is phase 3 study, adequate preclinical phase 1 and phase 2. Investigator's brochure is a compilation of clinical and non-clinical data on the investigation products, which is relevant to the study of the investigational products in the human subject. Fifth principle of ICGCP states that a protocol has to be scientific and clear. And what is a protocol? It is a document that describes the objectives, design, methodology, statistical considerations, and organization of a trial. It consists of all these, including the general information, design, objectives, assessment of safety, efficacy, publication policy, financing, everything is present in a protocol. Sixth principle of ICGCP states that you need to get an approval of the protocol before starting the trial. The ethics committee is the gatekeeper for a research, and they are involved in protecting the rights, safety, and well-being of the participant. They review the protocol for informed consent, investigator brochure, recruitment, curriculum vitae of the investigators, and payment policy. The qualification of the investigator is of prime importance. They also address the review and any concern. This is in concordance with the principle of essentiality in the Indian GCP, which says that we should conduct a research only if it is essential. We should not promote any need to research. And what does the seventh principle of ICGCP says? It says that an investigator should be qualified to provide medical care and medical decision. Only a clinician or a physician or a dentist can be an investigator. It has to be a qualified medical person. A non-medical person cannot become a principal investigator of a drug trial. This is in continuation with the seventh principle. The eighth principle states that the investigator has to be qualified or competent with education, proper training, and experience. This is in confirmation with the Indian GCP guideline of professional competence. The investigator should be a qualified medical or dental person with adequate experience, knowledge, skill, behavior, performance, and training. Now, what are we going to talk about? Yes, the consent of the participant is required before initiating a trial. This is the principle of voluntariness, informed consent, and community agreement. The 10th principle of ICGCP states that all the documents have to be recorded and stored, and it should be accurate, verifiable, and interpretable. The principle of institutional arrangement, which is set in the Indian GCP, says that the institution has to provide all the facilities that is required for the conduct of the trial. And there should be totality of responsibility. The investigators, prescribers, researchers, funders, sponsors, marketers, everybody are responsible for the proper conduct of the research. Now, what are we going to talk about? Yes, this is the 11th principle of ICH and Indian GCP. We are talking about confidentiality. Confidentiality is the right of an individual to have personal identifiable medical information kept out of reach of others. We have to respect patient's information. The patient or the participant is giving us permission to participate in the research through informed consent. But we have to maintain the confidentiality. We should not divulge the information. Now, what is privacy? Privacy is the privilege of the participant to be left alone. It is a respect to the patient's body, a right or expectation to be not to be interfered with and to be free from surveillance. Now, in all the following conditions, breach of confidentiality of a research participant can be done in consultation with ethics committee except, yes, okay, that's right, HIV positive status. That confidentiality you have to maintain. But if the participant is having suicidal ideation or homicidal tendency, or if there is a serious adverse event, or when required by court of law, you can breach the confidentiality. The 12th principle of ICGCP states that the investigational product has to be manufactured and stored following good manufacturing practice. And the 13th principle or the last principle of the ICGCP is about the quality. We have to ensure the quality of trial protocol by audit of the study protocol, the case report form, and the investigator's brochure. Audit at trial site for collection of data, audit of trial database for pooling of data in the database, audit of the statistical result, audit of the analysis, and audit of the trial report. Some other principles of the Indian GCP are principles of compliance. The investigator has to take special care to follow the protocol. If there is an unplanned change from the protocol, it is called as a protocol deviation. If it is a planned change, then it is called as protocol amendment. And if the protocol is not followed at all, if the investigator is non-compliant, then that is called as protocol violation. So it is the moral responsibility of the investigator to be compliant with the protocol, and the monitor as well as the sponsor has to ensure protocol compliance. The principle of accountability and transparency says that everybody have to be accountable at every step, and all the procedures in clinical trial has to be transparent. After the completion of the research work, one has to disseminate the research finding through conferences, workshops, and also publish it in reputed journals. The principle of maximization of public interest and distributive justice says that we have to disseminate the research finding and give the benefits to all the person in the world. We should not restrict to some community or some countries alone. Everybody should be given distributive justice. And the principle of social responsibility says that the society should earn from the research. And the principles of environmental protection says that through research we have to preserve our environment. The research should not harm our environment. So friends, respect is a two-way street. To earn respect, you must show respect. So respect your participant, and participant respect your investigator. Okay, thank you.